Thank you for joining me today on the Who God Says podcast. I am your host and Kingdom Ambassador, Ty-Shaun-Dra. Hi, hi, hi. We have special guests today, and I'm so excited. I just can't hide it. Okay, I have a husband and wife duo here. They are entrepreneurs, they are coaches, and they are Christians. Alan and Angie Thomas, welcome.
Thank you so much, Ty-Shaun-Dra. We're excited to be here with you.
Thank you, Ty-Shaun-Dra. Great to be here with you.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, so you sent me a message and you were like, what does weight loss have to do with my podcast? I loved it. I was like, yes. I think weight loss has a lot to do with my podcast because it has a lot to do with us as a body. And so a lot of people think of the body as being individuals, but I think of the body as being the body of Christ. And so to have that body to be as healthy as possible to carry out the purpose that God has brought us to, I think is very important. So you actually do belong here. So welcome. Oh my gosh. I want to ask you guys, where did you grow up? And what's your spiritual background when you grew up? Did you grow up in a religious home or anything?
I'm from West Columbia, South Carolina. In fact, lived in South Carolina and most of the time in West Columbia was until almost 20 years ago, 19 years ago, we relocated to Florida, North Florida, with Alan and I and our 4 children. But I grew up in a Southern Baptist home. When I was 3, one of the very first memories I have is of the church. It actually met in a fruit stand on the side of a popular road in West Columbia. And then it grew literally to something that resembles a castle. It's still in West Columbia. I'm sure the pastors have changed, but I still remember the pastor's name. Wall was the last name. And anyway, so I grew up in church, not, but you hear fanatical Christians or that word, but we went to church, but it wasn't something that was forced, if you will, or whatnot. Yeah. So, and we did, but we did, and my parents did later in life too. They sort of got away from it. Actually, after we were married and leaning toward church with having more toward church with having children. But no, we're grateful. We found a great church home to raise our children in Lexington, South Carolina. Awesome. And then we relocated, and it's been a little more challenging actually to find one here, but we have several we visit.
Yeah, so for me, I grew up in a primitive Baptist home, and primitive Baptist is like hard shell Baptist. If you can think of Little House on the Prairie kind of church where and the pastor screams most of the time. That's where I grew up. So I knew about Jesus at a young age and was in church every week, but just knowing about him doesn't really work very well. So and then when we had our first child. 34 years ago now. I have to think about it. I said, well, we better figure out this church thing again. So we started checking all them out, and we landed in a place that we were low hanging fruit. And so these 2 guys, Dan and Robbie, came over to our house. They had the courage to walk in our door and put Jesus in front of me in a way in February 1991 that I could understand it. And so that began really my real God journey. And so, and we, here's the thing. One of the things that I know and that I believe is that, the church is it's a hospital. Yeah, but it's and that was what we loved about that particular congregation. But we're doing church with you right now, so we're 2 or more. So at any rate, but yeah, we're Jesus followers, and while our business is not specifically targeted towards Christians only, they get some Jesus whether they like it or not. So that it doesn't, but it's we let the Father call, and then we just talk about it from that standpoint, and we do it from a very kind of an unusual place from the weight loss category. So,
Yeah. Did you guys struggle with weight loss at all when you were growing up as a child? Did you struggle with your weight at all?
yeah, I mean, both of us did. I mean, it was up and down and up and down. Age, we met. We were both very thin and fit when we met in 1980 at the University of South Carolina. But at the end of the day, our adult weight struggles. Angie had the up and down with the babies, our 4 children who were, like I said, were all grown. And, the last baby weight she carried for 15 years. Our child was 15 when she made that decision when we built Rethink Dieting accidentally. But for me, I had bigger swings, bigger struggles, but, ultimately found my way to morbid obesity one bite at a time.
What was that struggle like growing up, like as a child, or?
It wasn't like this massive struggle as a child. I mean, it wasn't. I mean, things. I mean, and we don't talk about this a lot. I mean, the food industry is clearly, stacked against us nowadays compared to when we were kids. But at the end of the day, it was, for me, it was, something that I kind of outgrew, so to speak. I mean, when I reached 12 years old, my mother was struggling with 30, 40 pounds. She went on a weight loss program, and we changed our eating habits in the house, and I lost weight, and then began to pick it up as I started into my adult years in my 20s and definitely in 30s and 40s and on. What about you?
I was, I guess, a chunky kid to start with, but my mom would say that if we were at the grocery, I would always prefer fruit. I would always ask her for oranges and things. I wasn't like driven by sweets and candy, but like Alan said, for him, I outgrew it too. I mean, I thankfully, but then the struggle was real again after having children.
Yep.
Okay. And you said you guys met in college at the University of South Carolina?
We met at our first 8 o'clock class in freshman year in the University of South Carolina. We'll celebrate the anniversary of our first date in about a month and a half. So it'll be 45 years that we went out the first time. So.
Wait a minute. So you still celebrate the anniversary of your first date?
44 years. 44 years. 45. I said 44 years. 44 years anniversary of our first date. We've been married 38 years, but first date.
Oh my gosh! And you remember that?
Sure, it was on my birthday.
Made it easy. His birthday.
Made it easy.
Oh wow!
And it was homecoming at the university.
We went to a football game. Yeah, it was homecoming then. Back in the day where you dressed up and got all decked out to go to a football game.
So I had no idea it was his birthday till after the game, and we were at dinner.
Oh.
But that was really nice to be the one he asked.
I think that is absolutely beautiful. You still celebrate your first date. So most people would say, you know what, we're married, we shouldn't be celebrating that. That is amazing.
Well, we celebrate his birthday, and it just happens that we remember
makes it easy. I don't just make it easy. Go out with the love of your life on your birthday and make it simple.
That's a good tip for all the guys that's listening.
Hi everyone. Join the Kingdom Fanatics community. Get exclusive content, green room access with our guests, and more. Visit our website at whogodsays.com. Like and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We greatly appreciate your love and support. To find all information on joining our community, being a guest on the show, donating on our PayPal donation page, and more, visit us at whogodsays.com. Now back to the show.
Good tip. So you say you've been married for 38 years now?
Yep.
Ooh. Okay. So going out of college, what career path did you choose, and what was your mindset? I'm going to do this thing. This is what I'm going to do to provide for my family. How did you make that decision?
Yeah, out of college, I mean, it was, I had, when we got married, I had the trophy wife, so I checked that one off, and that was, the trophy wife, and then, for me, I'd worked my way through school selling fine men's clothing at a clothing store in Columbia, South Carolina, and one day, and I decided that I wanted to be in ownership, an entrepreneur, and we long God's story there of how we found our way into a fine men's clothing business that that we're in for many years, and sold it in 2005. As actually in February 2005, we sold it and moved our family to Florida. And Angie, you speak to yours.
I journalism major, not a lot of options really in Columbia. And I was not leaving this guy to go to Chicago or New York or some other location. So I wound up through a mutual friend. I learned of a sales position at AT&T.
Mm-hmm.
And it was called Bell Atlantic at the time. Then it became AT&T while I was there. So I went from inside sales to outside sales for several years, actually, until we had our second, right at the time we had our second child. And then I flipped to a more local company, another phone company, but it was cell phones back in the 94.
When cell phones were the size of our computers.
Right.
Now,
so
yeah, I remember that.
A desktop computer.
and then honestly, after our second child, when he was about 6 months old, I became a stay-at-home mom. And then we homeschooled starting when our first child was in second grade. We began homeschooling, and then a couple years later, we had our third son. And so then by this point, there's like two are homeschooling. And they went to church kindergarten, if you will, and all of that. But as far as once they were really in school, we were homeschooling. And the oldest graduated from homeschool. Even though we relocated to Florida, he chose to stay to continue to homeschool. Our middle two boys, that our baby was a girl, and not school age when we moved to Florida. But the boys went into public school after we were here about a year for various reasons, wanting activities and drama, particularly, and things that. So it was a good move for them. We let them have the choice. So we were still homeschooling, though, as I said, the oldest one, and had the younger daughter at home. And Alan found other things, other works, a lot that called him for a season. And I would always assist from home, like calling to schedule appointments and things like that. Okay. So, we've always just kind of been a team, if possible.
I love that.
So.
I love that. How was homeschooling for you, going from being in the workforce and I would say kind of building a career, moving up? How did that shift make you feel, moving from maybe I could build a career and now I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom and homeschooling? Actually,
it was a gift for our family. And maybe some might think that I threw up, away opportunities, and I may have, but I could not get those opportunities back with my boys. Yeah. And I say the boys because their daughter was maybe not born, so young, and we were attached at the hip for years just because we wanted to be. Mm-hmm. So all of those lessons, though, that I learned along the way, whether it was at AT&T or in college or whatever, they all pointed to lessons learned that are helping me, and hopefully that helps Alan with our Rethink Dieting, and being able to serve the people that come to us, whether they've heard us on a podcast or seen a Facebook ad or someone's introduced us somehow. Because that is our passion now after our loss of 192 pounds. We released, Ty-Shaun-Dra, 192 pounds together in 2017 in 260 days.
That's
Alan,
awesome.
129 pounds and me 63 pounds.
That is awesome. So your homeschooling was practice for your patience and for your
So
compassion.
yeah, so many
That's awesome.
great lessons from
That
them
is
and my
awesome.
family.
You had to have patience to do homeschooling. I tried that during COVID and it was killing me. I was like, Lord, I'm going to be bald headed by the time this is over.
Well, Alan was a blessing too because as the older son, might have been a little more challenging, and Alan was able to step in and help some with
All
him.
right, Dad. Come on,
It all
Dad.
worked out. They're all doing well, so we're
That's
we're
awesome.
blessed.
So, Ellen, you always had this entrepreneur spirit. You wanted to, hey, I understand I needed to make ends meet. I got to get this job, but I really want to do something else. I want to be an owner. And so you took the step and you became an owner of a men's clothing
Mhm. Yeah,
store.
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, like Angie said, like she pointed out, I mean, all roads led here. I mean, what we're doing now, I mean, I mean, it was all designed by somebody a whole lot smarter than me. You know, I mean, God designed because, you know, we never would have planned what we've done. I mean, the things we did from a standpoint of a retail business, where we own a retail business, and those things, the things that we were doing along the way, even when we, really what led us to move here was a God story that we ended up. I read a book by a guy who recently passed away. He was a longtime mentor, Dan Miller, who had 48 Days to the Work You Love. He started his coaching business across the hall from a guy by the name of Dave Ramsey. They were both teaching Sunday school at a church in Nashville, and I found him in the late '90s, early 2000, and just basically said, if you inherited $1 zillion and from a rich uncle, and you know you can't fail, and you know you're going to have enough, would you be doing what you're doing today? And my answer for the first time was no in 2000 and 2003, 2004, after having the dream work of that clothing store. And what his next line was, if the answer is no, then make a plan. So within 14 months, Angie and I had sold our clothing business, we'd sold our home, and we moved to Amelia Island, Florida. And then when we got here, I mean, it was finding it was interesting. Again, all roads were leading back to Rethink Dieting, which was nowhere in the front mirror, side mirror, any mirror. I mean, at all. We couldn't see this coming, and but it was just being trained for it. I mean, I spent over a decade in the insurance business, where I dealt with, and Angie worked with me in that, helping me set appointments. But I dealt with what's called the senior market. That's people 65 years and older. And so when I stepped on the scale in March of 2017, after struggling with obesity for many years, and saw something on that scale that I never thought I would see in my life. It was the number 3 at the beginning of the number. It was 304 pounds. I'm 5'11". That's a lot. That's called morbid obesity. And what happened was, when I stepped on that scale, it was just interesting. It was a God moment for me. I mean, Angie was in the other room. It was the day after our 31st wedding anniversary. Angie was in the other room asleep. It was after 6 in the morning. The kids were not up, and it dawned on me, I had never met a man. Now, I was 55, but I'd never met a man that was 65. After thousands of meetings with families in their homes for their insurance, for senior, whether it be health insurance or life insurance, whatever I was working with. And I could not remember meeting one man that was 100 pounds overweight that was 65 years old.
Wow.
And the reason I couldn't remember that is because they were all dead. I mean, I hate to say this. I mean, now, are there people that are over 65 that women tend to live longer, but they just have a million different health conditions because of obesity. But the men die, and while we even have clients that are in their. We have one client who's now 73. We came to us at 70, and he's released, which how we call losing weight, released 170 pounds following our process. But and after struggling for 52 years, but with obesity. But the point I'm making with that is, I realized that she was going to call me her first husband, not because she was shopping around looking for another man, but because I couldn't put down the fork.
Yeah.
And so standing there looking at that number, I mean, I also realized that God called me to some other things that I had this itch I couldn't scratch, and I couldn't figure out what it was. Couldn't figure out what it was, what the it was. You know, it was this thing. There was this. It was, you know, you have this feeling that there's something else you're supposed to be doing, and I realized that if I didn't get control of my weight, that I would never get to that plan. I mean, you know, it's just like, you know, he's got plans for us, a hope and a future. And so I knew that I had a role in that. I mean, I have responsibility. I mean, God gave me this vessel. I mean, what is the most valuable thing other than your salvation is the body that he gave you.
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening after I'd been on 70 plus diets. We added them up one time, 70 plus diets, exercise plans. They all worked. I mean, every one of them worked. I mean, the problem was it was me not following through. You know, I was like the drunk or the drug addict or the you know, the philanderer or whatever you want to call. I just wouldn't stop.
Yeah.
And so, but knowing that she was going to call another man her husband eventually, because if I died from obesity, she's clearly going to get remarried. I mean, she says she wouldn't, but there'd be all kind of guys knocking, I promise you. I mean, there'd be all kind they don't notice me walking through the restaurants. They notice her. And so I promise you, the women don't turn their heads and look at me. the men turn their heads and look at her, and the women's do too. And that's been our life. People said to me for years, how'd you get her? I said, I don't know. She's blind in one eye. I can't see it over other, I guess. But the point I'm making with all of this is I knew there'd be another man that my children would be calling dad. I knew there'd be another man that would be with my wife, because I couldn't put down the fort. So I took a picture of that scale. If you see our website, transformmyfuture.com, you'll see a picture of that scale that morning. The reason I took a picture of it was just like any disaster. If the neighbor's house a plane flew into the neighbor's house, you call 911, you run, make sure everybody's okay. The next thing you're going to take is a picture because it's a disaster. They're unusual. And so I took a picture of that disaster, not knowing what was ahead of me, other than I was not going to see that number again. And fast forward 260 days, you know, the number read 175. And Angie, and here's what's interesting too for your listeners, you know, we all want to fix the people around us.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Angie was starting to have her own weight problems. She was right knocking on obesity too for the first time in her life. Wow. She was at pregnancy weight without a child. Okay, without a child that she was carrying. I mean, we had 4 that were running around, but she didn't have a child. She was at that. But what she was waiting on me to do was the thing that I didn't want to do the most, which was lead. And it wasn't me saying, put down that ice cream cone and grab the broccoli. It was me doing what I needed to do. So within 190 days, she dropped 63 pounds. So go figure, you know, men are called to be as Christ was to the church, and Christ took the nails. We've got to take the nails. If you're a lady listening to this and you struggle with obesity and you want your children to behave differently, or you want your husband to behave differently, get your act in order.
Are you a busy professional and desire to balance mental and physical health? Fit for You is here to help. Calm stress, increase endurance, and prioritize your health with Mental Size. Connect the 3 B's with your virtual partner, convenient and holistic, available for youth and adults. Accessible via the Fit for You Mental Size app, which also features recipes, preset workouts, and more. Join a like-minded and diverse wellness community and visit our website for more information and memberships. Join us.
That's the message piece of it. So all those roads of those career paths and all those different things were leading. And it was so funny. You know, my mentor, Dan Miller, who I mentioned earlier, who I read his book, and it was a 20-year relationship as far as coaching and all. And he, after I walked through that journey, he said, man, you want to teach people how to do this? I said, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I don't want to tell people what to eat, because it wasn't about what they ate. Do they have to change what they eat? Of course they do. It was about the thinking. And so he said, well, that's fine. You do you, boo. I mean, he didn't say that, but that was kind of he would never push it on me. But a couple of months later, Angie and I were being interviewed on a kind of a podcast type event. It was a video event. and somebody saw us, and our weight loss story came out. We weren't doing this for a living. And our weight loss story came out, and this guy by the name of Mark, he reached out to me. He reached out and said, I heard your story. Can I talk to you? And I said, sure. I mean, I didn't know what he wanted. And we get on the phone together, and he just says, Alan, will you help me? He said, will you help me? He said, I'm struggling so hard and all that. And what happened was I heard myself, Ty-Shaun-Dra. I heard myself, and I didn't want to coach this guy. He said, would you coach me on what I'm doing? I said, let me tell you what I'm going to tell you this. I will never tell you what to eat because you already know what to eat. Do you have to change? Of course you do. I will never tell you I said this. I remember like it was Tuesday that I said, it's been, what was it, 2019. And I said, I will never tell you what exercise to do, because you already know what to do. But I will work on the things that you've been missing. Mm-hmm. And that's what we worked on. And he had a life-changing story. He ran his first mile at age 45. He's never ran his life. I mean, all these things started happening that we didn't tell him to do. And it was like God was saying, okay, this is the thing, the itch you haven't been able to scratch.
Oh, wow.
And then it led to us just leaning into this process that we built called Rethink Dieting, which was just retracing our steps. And people say to us all the time, it's just so funny. I know, one of our clients who Sean, he's so funny. I mean, you can see him, it's funny in a good way. I mean, like such a good guy, but he was over 400 pounds. He was in a wheelchair if he had to walk more than 10 feet. And he said, I've got all these things going on. I've never been on a diet in my life. Oh, wow. And you're telling me you can help me without giving me a diet. I said, yep, positive I can. And he said, well, and he said, okay, I'm going to buy, he became a client. And he said, but what am I going to eat? And I said, well, Sean, what if your wife and 2 daughters were taken hostage? And you've heard this if you watched our training there. So what if your wife and 2 daughters were taken hostage? It's the first time I actually applied it to somebody who'd never been on a diet in their life. So I wasn't sure it'd work. And I knew in my heart it should, but I said, but what if your wife and 2 daughters were taken hostage? I said, and the only way you could see them again was to let go of 1 of those pounds every week until you reached your ideal weight. But the catch is you can't ask a doctor, you can't ask a dietitian, you can't ask a physical fitness expert, you can't ask a nutritionist, you can't even consult Google, or those awful kidnappers who've taken your family will kill your family if you do that. But you've got to lose weight. And here's the other catch. If you don't do it, you're not going to see them again. What would you do to save their life? Not your own, but theirs. Mm-hmm. And he thought for about 30 seconds. Actually, I thought he hung up on me. We're on the phone together. And he said something that today sounds comical, but he was 100% sincere, and it led to him releasing almost 200 pounds of excess weight. And he said to me, I know what I'm going to do. Alan, I'm going to eat less. That's where he started. That's where he started. Now, did he have to learn and become? We tell people they have to become an expert in themselves. And it's so interesting, Ty-Shaun-Dra, people are giving up their relationships. Third cause of divorce in this country is weight gain. Now, I know Angie loved me at 304 pounds, but she didn't dislike me at 175, just so y'all know. Okay, we make these excuses and we go through these challenges. And it's sad because, it's like, and we were talking about this off camera earlier when you were talking. It's like the enemy. Clearly, we know Jesus tells us the enemy came to kill, steal, and destroy. He is searching around like a lion, looking for you to devour you. Mm-hmm. And what happens is we're selling our birthright for a bowl of stew, like Esau did. We're selling the birthright that we're selling our birthright because we can't put down the fork. We're called in Galatians, in all through Scripture, it talks about having self-control. Yeah, that's what obesity is caused by, a lack of self-control. Now, people can argue with me all they want to about it. Is the food pyramid a scam? Absolutely. Have the food companies sold us out? Absolutely. Has our government bought into that food pyramid thing? This not true? Absolutely. Are they selling drugs now that are killing people for weight loss just to make it easy? Absolutely. Are surgeries a solution? Not at all. They kill people. All these different things. And then people say, well, I've got this condition, I've got that condition. And to all of that, I say, and so what? Right. You can still get the weight off. It's just like the guy I mentioned earlier, Rick. This guy walks with a walker. He's got fused vertebrae. He heart attack survivor. He can't exercise, Ty-Shaun-Dra. Exercise for him is moving the walker. That's exercise for him. Yeah. 70 years old, struggled with obesity for 52 years, 388 pounds. And this morning, you know what he weighed in at? Because he sent it to us. You know what he weighed in at?
What?
218 pounds.
All right, Rick.
And we never once told him what food to eat. We never once, but we focused on the pieces, what we call the rethinking. Because we say it all the time. This is not a diet, it's a decision. You have to change what you eat. Of course you do. But it's like the Israelites, as they were leaving Egypt, heading for the promised land. Okay, they got God leading their way. They're doing all this stuff. It's an 11-day walk, Ty-Shaun-Dra. You know this probably. It's an 11-day walk that took 40 years. The reason it took 40 years is because they wanted a shortcut. It started with that golden calf and all the disobedience and all the different things. It was a shortcut. And for that reason, that generation, other than Caleb and Joshua, did not get to see the promised land. Moses got to look at it from afar, but he didn't get to actually walk into it. And that's what's happened with the diet industry. The diet industry, while they're well-meaning, I don't have any ill will towards most of it. I don't think they're trying to harm people. I really don't believe they are. I think most of them. But it's grown to a $90+ billion industry, while obesity rate is rising by 92,555 people more today than were obese yesterday. Okay, that's every day. And so is it working? No, because people are wanting a shortcut.
Yeah.
My shortcut, that my 35 years of obesity and Angie's years of struggling with weight, her shortcut was the 190-day journey straight for what she wanted. Mine was a 260-day journey of 129 pounds. I don't say this to impress anybody. I don't. I should have never been 304 pounds. She should have never weighed 188. But the point is, we did. And it's a blessing. And so, at any rate, I didn't mean to go on a long tangent, but it's a biblical issue, and people can tell me that it's hard for them, and I get it. There's out of the hundreds of people that we've helped, thousands of people we've helped with their weight, not one of them has a metabolism fast enough. And the way I know that is because they wouldn't have been overweight to start with.
Right.
Okay? Not one of them has solved it on their own. Every one of them had excuses and conditions that were real, and I feel for them. And I'm not making light of this. Don't hear me being rude, because that's not me being rude. The first thing people have got to learn to do is make peace with themselves and have the grace to forgive themselves that they were learning 100 different ways not to lose weight. Okay, so just like the Israelites, they found 40 years of walking worth to learn an 11-day walk. I mean, and that's so as we talk with people, and it breaks our hearts. But the thing I want people to hear is we were failures. That's all we were. That's all. We were failures, and by the grace of God, we found this way. And what would the church look like? Okay, and it's like one of our clients, Pastor Scott. You might have seen some of his stuff online. He jumped out of an airplane after he dropped 90 pounds of excess weight. By the way, not being told what to eat, not being told what exercise to do. I'll say it over and over because people think, what's the secret? The secret is between your ears. That's the muscle that he worked. He followed the process. But his wife today, he told us, what was it, a couple of days ago?
Like 30 pounds.
His wife just dropped 30 pounds, not because of anybody telling her what to do, not because he harped on it, and she didn't have the struggle with obesity. He did. Now, yesterday was their anniversary. He told us yesterday. We reached out and we wished them a happy anniversary. And he said, we're going to play pickleball tonight. My wife wants to go play pickleball. His wife wanted to. He said that was their anniversary date because she's wanting to be active. She's wanting to do a thing. Men, the women are waiting on us to lead. Okay, women, Don't nag, lead. You have a leadership opportunity. I mean, so he led. Now his daughters, his 3 daughters, they're seeing their life change. His church, you can't believe the number of people that have lost weight in his church because he did.
Yep.
Lead, believer, lead, that we're being called. Here's what's so fascinating about it. And I'm going to shut up, I promise you. But it's what's so fascinating about this whole journey is that your weight is one of your greatest assets that you've got. If you're 100 pounds overweight, 50 pounds overweight, 75, 30 pounds, 200 pounds, whatever amount overweight, it's a blessing because you cannot hide it. You can't wear big enough clothes. You can't wear loose enough clothes. You can't be in a dark room enough. Everybody knows you're overweight and get over it. Okay? It's not a bad thing. Here's why. Because guess what? When you release that weight, because we say release instead of lose because you look for things you lose and we want to release it. So when you release that weight, you cannot hide that either. And here's what we've seen happen, and it's the most amazing thing ever. I want people to be healthy, but that's not why we do this. I want people to be healthy. They already know about health, but health didn't get them there. But I want them to come alive, like that abundant life that Christ promises in John 10:10. But people, when they start to release the weight, they can't hide that either. So the man struggling with pornography who's skinny sees it. The woman who struggles with adultery, the man who struggles with adultery, the family that struggles with alcoholism, the one who struggles with drug abuse, all those, they can hide their problem most of the time. Okay? But the obese man and woman cannot hide their problem. They also cannot hide when they solve it. So the person struggling with alcoholism, pornography, drug addiction, adultery, you name it, those people get something that cannot be gotten any other way except by example, and that's called hope.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they see that maybe their problem is not as big and they could face it boldly too. And maybe they could change. And we see people, the stories that we hear are just, it's not us. I promise you, we're not that good. Well, we aren't, but we serve a great God who wants the people of God to be free of this thing called obesity. And you're never going to solve it with the diet of the week.
Yeah. I want to ask Angie, when you were looking at your husband gain weight, did that affect you at all? Did you think about, hey, I see you gaining the weight. Am I gaining weight? Like, how did you feel about that?
Well, when you're gaining 100+ pounds, it doesn't happen all at one time.
Mm-hmm.
It's
right.
5 pounds this year, 7 the next, and yes, the last 10 years or so prior to 2017 is when it really came on and got to the point that and he did not know this until after the weight loss, but every night it did get to a point that I was scared that he would not, the last kiss, I was like, will he be here in the morning?
Wow.
And he didn't realize it was affecting our children as well.
Yeah.
One of our older sons said, this is not to hurt Alan, and he it's important to realize for fathers and mothers to realize that our son, who loved his dad with all his heart, just said to me, I guess Dad just doesn't love us enough to lose the weight.
Wow.
Crushing to me. And all of our kids were trying to help encourage Alan. There's little notes around, like in his nightstand and the vanity in the bathroom, the medicine cabinet door. You got it, like with a Nike sign. I mean, they drew little, and this was even our 15-year-old, 18-year-old son that was living here at the time. Everyone was trying to, encourage along the path
and my weight
with the many diets that he was on. And I continue to prepare the right foods in the world, as the world thinks of the right food. Many, many chicken breasts. I lost count from all of our years of being together,
right.
But especially in the last 20, let's say. But we can't do it for the person we love.
I was stopping and picking up 2 candy bars.
And I had no idea. And
You don't gain weight without a math equation. I mean, it happens. I mean, she can't feed me chicken breasts that are grilled and don't have a lot of taste, although she's a great cook. All those things and me gain weight from that very likely. It's pretty hard to gain weight. That's so. But they always had a good deal on candy bars at the gas station on the way out when I was working in insurance.
Wow.
But no, I was fearful that I would not have a husband.
Mm-hmm.
That when we married on March 1st, 1986, yes, it's through health and bad times, good times, and sickness and all of those things. But I was really worried, and I knew he loved me. I mean, he had been on many diets. He was out working hard for our family. Such a good man. I just knew that in my heart that he was trying everything.
Yeah.
But I guess, we weren't doing everything, and we enabled each other. If he said, let's go get something, let's go buy and get an ice cream after a long, stressful day at work or whatever, I was always up for it.
Yeah.
Starting and growing a business while dealing with your finances can be overwhelming and stressful. Emerald Services provides packages tailored to your business needs to help you mitigate taxes, stay compliant, plan for your future, and save money, so you can focus on being the creative, influential visionary that delivers your dreams to the world. Because what you focus on is what will multiply. Schedule your discovery call today to find out ways Emerald Services can benefit your life plan and your business plan. Visit emeraldserve.com or call 504-603-6059.
That's how I gained my weight to the excess of 188 pounds. And I'm not 6 feet tall. I'm only 5'7". So that was definitely too much weight.
Yes.
And that was, and it limited us. It limited me, I should say.
Oh yeah, the shame.
The shame. And but I was right there with them for all the good times toward, in the last years and whatnot of gaining the weight. Yes. And I had not weighed. I was one of those that would go into the doctor and literally, I had not weighed, even though we have a scale in our bathroom for years.
Wow.
Several years. I say years. It was probably 2, 3, 4. And I would just tell the nurse, who would get very upset at me for not getting on the scale quickly. I'd say, no, I'll talk to the doctor, but I'm not obese and I'm not skinny. And so that was my excuse. And I never got called out by a doctor for not weighing, but that was so wrong. I mean,
yeah.
Well, and our medical professionals, it's just like when I went into my physician, he's a great doctor. I mean, they get a couple hours of training around weight, really. And I mean, their solution normally is going to be some sort of medication, some sort of surgery if it gets bad enough. But they don't really know. And it's like when I walked into my doctor and he lives around the corner from us, and we're in a small community called Fernandina Beach here on Amelia Island. And he, when I walked in, I mean, he'd been bugging me about my weight for, almost 20 years, the whole time he'd been my doctor since we moved down here, or at that point it was 14 years, whatever it was. But he said, wow, you're down. I was about halfway there. I was down probably 60 pounds when I saw him. He said, man, what do you, first thing he asked me, just like anybody else, what are you doing? And I kind of walked through what I'm doing. He said, that's great. He said, where are you heading? And I told him where I was going in weight. And he said, let me tell you something. He said, people are going to tell you that you're getting too thin when you get down to your ideal weight range. He said, because they're threatened. Boy, he was prophetic on this one. He said, they'll be threatened. He said, don't listen to them. He said, because he deals with a lot of geriatric patients, people over 70, 80 and all. He said, you know what the common denominator of all the thin ones are? The people who are thin and don't carry a lot of excess weight. And I said, what's that? He said, they live. They're alive. And I said, and he said, and sure enough, my mother, who'd been harping at me for decades to get my weight down, when I got about halfway there, she said, oh, you're getting too skinny now. You don't need to go any further. And I'm like, get behind me, kind of that thing. I wouldn't say what my mom saying, but get behind me. I said, no, Mom, You don't get to call this one out after you've been bugging me this long. I know what I should weigh. And it's so funny. I mean, we see people reaching weights that it's like one of our clients right now. He's so funny. He can't stop smiling. He was 420 pounds on February 1st. Okay, at 5'8".
Like this year?
And he stepped into our process. He stepped into our process, 420 pounds. He weighed in a couple of days ago at 298 pounds and still going. And and it's so funny when we don't ever tell people what they should weigh. The question we have, like I mentioned to you earlier, was if Jesus walked in the door at the version of yourself he created you to be at your present age, what does that version weigh? Okay, and that's a question that people know the answer to. You don't have to look at a chart on a wall to figure it out. They know pretty quickly. And it's not what it's the pre-fall version. It's when I say pre-fall, I'm not talking about seasons. I'm talking about before the apple was eaten in the garden. It's the version that you're created to be. And it was so funny when I asked him that. He said I'm going to be 210 pounds, and I knew that was a little high, but I'm like, I'm okay. I'm okay with that. I don't ever argue with people because ideal weight's a personal thing. It's not. We don't tell them what to weigh. I want people to be healthy. But
what if you don't know that number?
I've never met anybody who didn't.
I don't know that.
Never met a soul. Okay, and I'm not going to. This isn't a coaching session for you, but at the end of the day, he. Here's what it was, and here's a way to figure it out. Think of the time in your life where you've really felt good, where you really felt confident, where weight was never a thing on your mind whatsoever. Go back to that version. What's that? Say that again.
I probably was a teenager.
and that's where most people, and that's nothing wrong. That's where I had to go to. I had to go to I'm back at teenage weight. So, and it's possible. And we get this mindset that, oh no, that's impossible. No, it's not. It's not. Is it easy? Heck no, it's not easy. Is it doable? Is it simple? Oh, it's extremely simple. But it's so funny, Dave. It was so cute what he said. He came to one of our coaching calls. He said, "Would it be okay if I changed my ideal weight number?" I said, "I've just been waiting on you to." and it's like he dropped it by 25 pounds. And one of the questions we have for people when they're in our process, we want them to get to this place where they have what we call the watch me mentality. Okay. And the watch me mentality is where the people around you are all saying, there's no way you get there. You're 50, you're 60, you're 30, or whatever. You just had a baby. You got a baby coming, or whatever the situation or the challenges that because people are going to be threatened when you drop the weight. I'm just telling you right now, people struggle with weight. They're going to get threatened. And so, but when somebody comes to you and they say to you, like somebody said to me online, they said, there's no way you reach your ideal weight by November the 25th November 23rd, November 22nd, 2017. There's no way you reach that. It was actually a trainer. It was a guy that I didn't personally know, but he saw my post online and he's like, there's no way you do it. And I had one phrase for him. It's a 2-word phrase. And I said, watch me. And he was right. I didn't hit it on November 22nd like I declared. I hit it on November 17th, 5 days early. And so I want our clients get to the watch me mentality where there's no doubt. Is it easy? No, it's not easy. If people looking for magic pills need to stop. Well, or better yet, if they find magic pills, real magic ones. I'm not talking about the ones that are selling at the pharmacy that make you sicker than you were with the weight. What I'm talking about is the magic pills like Jack and the Beanstalk kind of magic pills that really would do something. Find those, send them to us too. I mean, we'll be the promoter, but the magic is within us all, Ty-Shaun-Dra. The magic's inside. It's like doing a podcast. Is this easy? No, you had to learn stuff. You didn't know all this. You didn't know how to work the software. You didn't know. I don't imagine. I mean, you weren't, unless you came out of the womb knowing this. You didn't know how to connect with people. You didn't know you had to learn it. But we won't give ourselves that grace with the most important gift that God gave us. The most important gift next to the salvation itself is the vessel that these earth suits that he gave us to walk around in while we're on earth. We come up with these excuses like, well, God knows my days. Well, he does, but he also says not to play it. I don't believe it's not written in scripture not to go out in the middle of the interstate and run back and forth across it. But I imagine if you run, and if you recall, when Jesus was tempted by Satan, and Satan says, "Hey, let me take you to a high place. You just throw yourself down." You throw yourself down, the angels will catch you. And Satan started quoting scripture to him. Satan leaves out parts. He likes to do that.
Mm-hmm.
He quotes what he likes. And Jesus said, "Do not test the Lord your God."
That's
So
right.
I would say to people that are struggling with obesity and know that they need the correction, do not test God. Do not test him. It's no different than Jesus. If Jesus had to say that, you're just going to prove you're not Jesus. I mean, it's
That's
like when
right.
people try to fast for 40 days and 40 nights. Typically, they prove they're not Jesus. And so my point with all of this is it's possible.
Yeah.
If Angie can do it after having 4 children, if I can do it after struggling for 35 years, anybody can do this.
Yeah.
That's what people need to hear. It's not complicated.
That's amazing. What do you think is that one thing that everybody struggles with, and it doesn't matter what diet, what exercise you do? What is that one thing that everybody struggles with that
No,
causes that weight to stay?
sure.
Is it the mindset?
No, it goes even beyond that, but you're on the right track. It's like, have you ever received a degree in any form? Are you high school, college, or graduate school? What's your highest level of education? I'm curious.
Oh gosh. Well, I have I'm a board certified cosmetologist, so that would be the highest
So that's
level.
that's a big deal. And so you graduated from something. So when you started cosmetology college, were you just going to try to be a cosmetologist? You're just going to try that?
I did for years. It didn't work out.
But you made the decision that you were going to finish it when you started, no matter how long it took, right? Okay.
Yeah.
This is the most. If nobody here has heard anything that we said, it is the decision that there's no way out except the way to get there. There's no way out. It's the decision that there's no way I'm going to take it anymore. There's no way that anybody can convince me I can't get this weight on. That is the hardest thing. That goes beyond whether people are in wheelchairs, because we help people get out of wheelchairs, that whether they use walkers, whether they have type 2 diabetes, whether they even got diabetic neuropathy. We've had people that have doctors can't explain how the neuropathy went away. That's not, the retinopathy where your vision's being affected. It went away from when they got their obesity in line. We've had things happen, but because people made the decision that there's no way they're not going to do it. There's no way. There's no way. It's just like if it's that example I gave you about if your family's life was at stake,
right?
If your you wouldn't take it. Listen, God doesn't make junk, okay? And He didn't start with anybody that's listening to this, or you, me, or Angie.
Yeah,
you're no. People would fight for. We have people. It's so funny. They don't. You mentioned their dog. I mean, like Angie had to go get our dog quieted down a little while ago before we got on live with you. But we'll do things for our dog we won't do for ourselves.
Yeah.
We aren't dogs. We're not junk. We're valuable. And here's the thing. It's like one of my clients, Matt McWilliams, who's. He's an online personality. I followed him for years, and actually, when I knew that this was a God journey for me, and I knew it was a God journey for Angie and I actually reached out to him and cold called him, and basically said, "Do you want some help with your weight?"
Wow.
And so 88 pounds of fat later, and he got his ideal weight. It's a pretty amazing story. But when in the original call with Matt, he said, "Would you please help me?" Because he knew a little bit of my story. He said, "Would you please?" I said, "Yeah, I'll help you." I said, "I'm never going to tell you what to eat. I'm never going to tell you what exercise to do because you already know." And he said, but it was interesting, a conversation. I said, and it was the first time I said it to anybody. I said, "Matt, there's a conversation that you're going to have one day, and I don't know where it is." I said, it'll be the last day of your life. Maybe the week before. I said, hopefully it's when you're 110 or whatever. Maybe it's with one of your children. Maybe it's at a grocery store. Maybe it's with a postman that just walks by. But you're going to say something to somebody that's going to alter their life.
Yeah.
In a good way.
That's beautiful.
What we do, it's not about whether you ate broccoli. It's not about whether you did jumping jacks. What we do is get you to that conversation. because that's what we're here for. We're here for a purpose that we can't see. You are Ty-Shaun-Dra, Angie and me are. Every person listening is here for some reason. But if you can't fulfill it because of obesity, shame on us. I mean, not shame like we're shame-free zone for weight, just so enough. When people come to us, it's like, man, we love it. They come to us and at 500 pounds, we're like, you're my people. We love you. We love you. And God loves you regardless of what you weigh. But shame on us for not living the life that we're called to live. Live the life that we're called to live. Shame on you if you didn't do your podcast. Your message wouldn't get out. And I'm not trying to throw shame around here, but I want people to understand this is 100% possible. Is it easy? No. But you ask when people, no matter what somebody's situation. We had somebody the other day, it was interesting, a pretty new client. First, they told us what they wanted to weigh, and I could sense that they weren't really telling us the whole story. So I gave them that Jesus. And they dropped it 15 pounds immediately. But I didn't think that was possible. I said, that's why you can't weigh that. But I know it's possible. I said, really? I said, yeah, I'm positive. They said, well, all eight's this and all eight's that, to want to tell me all the little things. And I don't really, not interested because it's not the truth. Okay. And I asked that question about family. If their family's life was on the line. Right. And I kind of walked them through that process. And it was so funny. I said, what would you do differently than you're doing today to make sure that your family lived? Oh, I'd stop eating so much ice cream and so many sweets. There it is. I'm like, we don't want to talk about the reality, but I know, here's the thing. There's always a way for the committed, and there's always an excuse for those that are not.
Yeah. Plain and simple. There is always. I want to thank you guys for coming by. Can you let the people know where they can connect with you and how they can get in touch?
Absolutely. We've actually created a training that you actually got to see, and they'll go to transformmyfuture.com/whogodsays, transformmyfuture.com, whogodsays. And it'll be a link we created just for your audience. So they'll be able to find us, and they can watch the training that Angie and I created. It's about 41 minutes. It's training where we walk through the step-by-step strategy. We help people lose 25, 50, 100 or more pounds of weight, and how we dropped 192 pounds together in 260 days. It's a step-by-step strategy. And obviously, if anybody knows that they've got a challenge and they need help, they can reach out to us, book a call with our team, transformmyfuture.com/apply. We're never too busy for any of your audience. If they want to, and on that call, we figure out how bad their problem is with weight, how really challenging it is, how committed they are to solve it, if we even think we can help them. Yeah. But they can go either spot, transformmyfuture.com/apply or the transformmyfuture.com/whogodsays. So they can remember that one, right?
That's right. Remember that one.
There you go.
Thank you guys so much for sharing your talent and your time and your spirit with us. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us, Ty-Shaun-Dra. It's been wonderful being with you today.
Thank you, Ty-Shaun-Dra. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us today on the Who God Says podcast with your host and Kingdom Ambassador, Ty-Shaun-Dra. Go to whogodsays.com to join the mailing list for episode premieres, upcoming guests, and more. Send in your questions to be a part of the show at whogodsays@gmail.com. And don't forget, join the Kingdom Fanatic community. Until next time, be blessed and also be a blessing.